I promise the tree is going. I love Christmas. I don't want to get rid of it. It's dying so badly. Like it really needs to go. It needs to go. Anyway, moving on to the topic of today's video, I recently did a deep dive on Darth Maul because he is one of my favorite characters. However, in the video, I also mentioned someone called Asajj Ventress, who arguably is my favorite character. As I mentioned in that video, my dad's sister and me used to run a Star Wars blog called Clone Corridor, and I also did a deep dive on Asajj Ventress, so I'll link that in the description. Again, please bear in mind, I was young at the time. It's a good blog post, but it's not like the most amazing thing in the world. But the question now, of course, is why is Asajj Ventress my favorite character, and why should you want to know more about her? In the Star Wars universe, we talk a lot about light versus dark, but Asajj Ventress, she kind of like falls in the middle a little bit. She's in this gray area, which makes her super intriguing. She's a character that's definitely defined by a series of abandonment. She was a slave, a Padawan, a Sith assassin, a sister, and ultimately a hero, and it just makes her this beautifully rich and complex character. She's ruthless, don't get me wrong, she is ruthless, and we'll get into that, but she's also really sensitive. And because of all of that, I think she's a standout in the Clone Wars series. And so today we're going to do a deep dive into the tragic, complex life of Asajj Ventress.
Who is this, brother? A Dathomir witch.
We aren't just going to look at the Clone Wars, we're going to try and pull from lots of different Star Wars sources, as I always try to do, but again, the disclaimer, first of all, spoilers, second of all, I'm sure there'll be things that I leave out that I maybe have forgotten, so please use the comment section as a repository of all your Asajj Ventress knowledge and share it with everyone else watching this video. To understand the bald Banshee in the Clone Wars, we have to look past her red lightsabers and the Sith vibes. Asajj Ventress' story begins with an act of survival, an act that would haunt the rest of her life. The trade. Asajj Ventress is born into the Night Sisters on Dathomir, which are ruled by Mother Talzin. Who are the Night Sisters, you may ask? First of all, you've clearly not watched my Darth Maul video. You totally should. Second of all, let's get into it. The Night Sisters are a clan of powerful Force sensitives who call themselves the Daughters of Aliyah. Aliyah was a cast-out Jedi who went to Dathomir and is kind of given credit for transforming the society on Dathomir to make space for the reign of the Night Sisters, and they are very much a full-blown matriarchy. Gotta love that. But they aren't Jedi, nor are they Sith. They practice magic. It's a unique manipulation of the Force that manifests in this eerie green color and kind of smoke-esque vibes. As I mentioned, in this society, the women are the masters. They live in this full-on matriarchy and rule over the Night Brothers, which are their male counterpart. Who are the Night Brothers? Think of people like Darth Maul and Savage Opress. And they're basically kept as subservient warriors for the Night Sisters. And Asajj Ventress is born into this, and this is a world where bonds of blood are supposed to be unbreakable. As an infant, Asajj Ventress lives in the Stone Village. In the Dark Disciple novel, it's hinted that she had a brief feeling and moment of belonging. Smell of incense, the red glow of the sun, the humming of the Night Sisters, but all of that is cut short. Mother Talzin, the High Priestess, is an associate of Darth Sidious, and some would argue for her to be a woman of cold calculation. I don't fully agree with that. I think there's a lot of nuance to her character, but she's maybe also not like the most cuddly, like warm mother. To protect her clan from a criminal called Halstead, she makes a deal. She surrenders the infant Asajj as protection money, a literal blood debt. And this is the first pillar of Asajj Ventress' character. Talzin's motive was purely pragmatic. She sacrificed one daughter to save the rest of the clan. And for the Night Sisters, the clan is everything, but for Asajj Ventress, the clan are the first to discard her. At an age before she can really even form memories, she's clearly taught that life is a commodity, and she was in the most literal sense a slave to the survival of others. And so Halstead takes her to the Outer Rim to a planet called Rattatak. Rattatak is an arid planet with very harsh conditions, and the native species, the Rattataki, what a name, are near humans, characterized as having really pale white skin, and due to the scarce resources, they're basically all like psychopaths apparently, and it's a very violent planet. In this planet, kindness is a weakness. You don't want to be kind to people. You're gonna die. Spoilers. And so we start to see the first kind of grayness of Asajj Ventress' life, which is that Halstead actually, he's not horrible to her. In the Republic comics, we see that he actually treats her with a level of care that maybe she didn't receive on Dathomir. However, when Weequay, Key, Weequay pirates raid their home, they end up killing Halstead. And now Asajj Ventress isn't just losing a master, she's losing the person who up until this point maybe is the only one who's really taken care of her. And this death teaches her a very valuable lesson. As I said, kindness is a death sentence in a world like this. If you're soft or if you love someone, the galaxy will find a way to take them away from you. Left alone in the wreckage, a young Asajj uses the Force to save a man that she doesn't know. And this is Kai Narek, a Jedi Master. He's been stranded on Rattatak after his ship crashed. And Narek sees her and he doesn't seem to see a witch or a slave. Instead, he sees a Padawan. For 10 years, Narek starts to train her. And they become the famous heroes of Rattatak, fighting warlords and bringing peace. But there's a very dark undertone here. Narek was a rogue. He actually didn't have the Jedi Council's permission to take Asajj on as an apprentice. He kept her fully isolated from the Jedi Order, and that completely skews Asajj's understanding of what the Jedi Order is. To her, it's just this one guy. This one guy who's teaching her stuff. And so, of course, tragedy comes in again when the Rattataki warlords become fearful of this Jedi duo. And what do? They try and assassinate them. Narek is shot in the back and Asajj is once again left to her own devices. And this time, Asajj Ventress doesn't just grieve. This third abandonment really changes something in her. And so she takes her lightsabers and in a fit of absolute primal rage, she goes ballistic and kills everyone. She quite literally kills every pirate and warlord in the vicinity. She blames the warlords for his death. However, she also really blames the Jedi Order. She feels like they were betrayed and left alone, and if they just brought in some resources and brought in some backup, none of this would have happened. Very important thing to keep in mind. Some people think that after this happens, the next thing we see is that she goes to Count Dooku, but that's actually not the case. Something happens in between. For years, Asajj stays on Rattatak and just becomes a hunter. She hunts people. She systematically executes every warlord on the planet and through that declares herself the Queen of Rattatak. She begins ruling from a gladiatorial arena that she calls the Cauldron, and she keeps Kai Narek's lightsaber not as a trophy of his life, but the betrayal of the Jedi Council. And so by the time that Dooku finds her, she's not just a student, she's this fully formed product of war who has already conquered an entire planet on her own. And so we move into the second section, which is the Sith acolyte. When Count Dooku arrives on Rattatak, as I mentioned, he doesn't find a helpless girl who doesn't know what to do with herself. Asajj Ventress has never been that. He finds a warlord and is absolutely impressed by her power. And so he takes her on as an apprentice. She's not really an apprentice. Let's remember the Sith have the rule of two. He can't take her on as an apprentice. This feels like it echoes Darth Maul's story, and really she's just an assassin. If we follow the real-world release of Star Wars media, most of us are introduced to Asajj Ventress either in the Clone Wars movie or in the series. Here she appears on the planet Christophsis as Dooku's agent, basically. And from her very first scene, she's established as not just a fighter, but like a psychological predator. She mocks Obi-Wan Kenobi, she flirts with her enemies to catch them off guard, and she displays a level of sophisticated cruelty that mindless droids just don't have. And at this point, I would say that she is at the height of her power and confidence. And it's so fun to watch. If you want to see the peak of Asajj's cold-blooded cruelty, you have to look no farther than Season 3 episode ARC Troopers. During the invasion of Kamino, she corners ARC Trooper Colt. In one of the most chilling and famously censored moments, she pulls him towards her and stabs him with her lightsaber or impales him on it while she kisses him. Absolute insanity. So cool. Oh my god, when I saw that, I was squealing. This isn't just a kill, this is a taunt. At this point, I don't think she just wants to win a war or win a duel. She wants to absolutely dominate her opponents. And she's not afraid to use all aspects of her being, whether that's her ruthlessness, her kind of sensitivity, whatever it is that gets someone in a mindset that makes it easier for her to overpower them. She's just really cool. I don't know what else to tell you. Really, you should be able to end the video here and just want to watch the Clone Wars. But please don't. Please stay. And throughout season 1 and 2, we see Asajj Ventress as this general. She isn't really a lone assassin at this point in time. She's really like a high-ranking officer in the Separatist military. A few examples are season 1, episode 19, Cloak of Darkness. One of her most iconic early missions involves infiltrating a Republic Star Destroyer to rescue Viceroy Newt Gunray. Here, she effortlessly outmaneuvers Luminara Mara and a young Ahsoka Tano. This episode is quite important because it shows her tactical brilliance. She really doesn't just use her lightsaber, she uses sabotage and stealth. And also during this time, she really acts as a Jedi hunter. She actively uses the attachments that Anakin and Obi have to taunt them and to try and completely manipulate them. She basically makes everything personal. Now, Dooku's recruitment of Asajj is an absolute masterclass in manipulation. He sees her trauma and her feeling of being abandoned by the Jedi, and he absolutely tries to weaponize the shit out of it. Asajj actively says, "I hated the Jedi for abandoning my master, and Dooku needed an apprentice as filled as hatred as he was. It was a good match." Dooku gives her in a way a sense of belonging, but it's definitely very conditional. He funnels her grief for Narek. He convinces her that the Jedi are just corrupt hypocrites who leave good Jedi like Narek and himself. And for the first time in years, you could argue that Asajj Ventress feels like she's got a bit of a father figure again, even if he's a cold and demanding one. Now, very importantly to note, as part of her baptism, Dooku gives her 2 curved-hilt lightsabers. In the Republic comics and the Cestus Deception tie-ins, we learn that these sabers have a very dark history. They originally belonged to Kamari Vosa, Dooku's former Padawan, who fell to the dark side and was killed eventually. By giving Asajj these weapons, Dooku is very subtly telling her exactly what she is: a replacement. Asajj modifies them so that they fit together into this really cool S-shaped staff, and that really reflects in her combat style as well. It's unpredictable, it's aggressive, and it's very much designed to overwhelm a Jedi who's playing kind of by the rulebook. Now, the tragedy of this era is that I think Asajj truly does see herself as a Sith. She at times announces herself to be a Sith. But Darth Sidious really only sees her as a dark side assassin and not much more. She really is the embodiment of the dark acolyte loophole and not much more. And as the war progresses, so do her powers, and some would argue that they progress to be too great and she becomes a bit of a liability. She begins to rival Jedi Masters themselves, and I think it's this growth that eventually does lead to her downfall. Sidious notices her powers, and I think him and Dooku are both fearful of them, and so he issues an order. Dooku has to kill his apprentice.
Eliminate her. She's my most trusted. I said, eliminate her.
And so we fall into Section 3, The Falling Apprentice. The collapse of Asajj's world really begins in Season 3, Episode 12, called Night Sisters. After a string of failures, Darth Sidious senses her growing powers, right? And is saying, you know what? Let's put an end to it. And this is a really big moment for Asajj, because remember, he was a bit of a father figure, even if a shitty one. And at this point, his words, "You are no longer my apprentice," are incredibly hurtful for her.
You have failed me for the last time. You are no longer my apprentice. And now, you shall die.
They echo the abandonment that she felt on Dathomir in her early years. And so broken and drifting, she eventually lands back on Dathomir. And this is where the TV series kind of leans into the supernatural, and we see Mother Talzin use Night Sister magic to heal Asajj. While the show focuses on the ritual, the Dark Disciple novel is able to focus a little bit more on her internal narrative and what she's experiencing during this time, and it describes the physical and spiritual pain of the transition that she's going through. Asajj isn't really just being healed, she's being reprogrammed from a Sith assassin back into a Night Sister. And so now, thirsting for revenge, of course, she plots to kill Count Dooku. She attempts 2 major hits on him, first being where she uses magic to mask her presence and infiltrate his palace. This fails and proves she can't really rely anymore on the Sith tactics that Dooku taught her. The second is when she tries to get close to him by gifting him the apprentice Savage Opress. I think it's quite important to quickly pause on this, because what it shows is the abuse cycle that's now kind of come full circle. Asajj is now treating Savage exactly how Dooku treated her. The abusee has become the abuser. And all of it, of course, comes to a head when Savage is too chaotic to control and abandons both Dooku and Asajj, leaving her alone again. So nothing's really going her way, and so in Season 4, Episode 19, in the episode Massacre, Dooku of course retaliates. And in what fashion does he do so? By sending General Grievous to eliminate the entire Night Sister clan. Asajj fights to save her sisters, but she fails, and she watches her entire culture and the only family that she had, even if it wasn't always, the most sensitive, loving family, it was still her family. She watches them die. And so by the end of the episode, Asajj truly is the sister in the lonely line. She's got no one else really to care for her. After the massacre, the TV show kind of skips ahead, but the comics kind of delve a little bit deeper into what happens next. And so the comics combined with the episode Bounty show us her rock bottom at this stage in time. She flees to Tatooine and she drinks away her sorrows in the cantina. If you only watch the show, you kind of see her lose all of her sisters and suddenly show up as a bounty hunter. But the lore tells us that she spent weeks out here in the Outer Rim, in a haze of despair with no master, no sisters, and no real purpose. She's a ghost with lightsabers. However, during this time, she learns something about herself that Dooku never taught her: autonomy. And so when she kills a pushy bounty hunter named Oked, she's forced to take his place in the Syndicate, which is led by Boba Fett. And so now suddenly she's not fighting really for a master or a cause anymore. She's kind of starting to fight for herself. And at the end of the mission, she makes a choice that really hints at the moral complexity of her character. She protects a young girl from being sold into a marriage, which is a short, small glimpse into who she really is. Asajj returns to our screens for the Ahsoka framed arc. And this feels like one of the most poignant parts of her story, where she teams up with Ahsoka and kind of sees herself in Ahsoka. They were both discarded by the Jedi Council. While she initially hunts Ahsoka for the bounty, they eventually team up. And even though Ahsoka is framed by Barriss Offee, who then also steals Asajj's lightsaber, they still form this weird alliance and friendship. And this friendship really remains a highlight of Asajj's growth towards the light. But as I mentioned, her red lightsabers are now stolen. So what's a girl to do? In the novel Dark Disciple, we learn that she acquires a yellow-bladed lightsaber from the black market. In Star Wars lore, yellow is often associated with the Jedi Temple Guards, but I think for Asajj, it very much symbolizes neutrality. She's no longer a Sith or a Jedi, she's her own person with her own battle to fight. And for years, fans kind of thought that this was where her story ended, but then the Bad Batch actually brought her back in season 3. In the episode The Harbinger, she appears on Pabu. She's calmer, more balanced, and uses a refined version of her combat style. She acts as a mentor to Omega, testing her force sensitivity. And this version of Asajj kind of feels the closest to like a Jedi-like version of her that we get to see. She's protective, wise, and she's clearly moving away from the darkness of her past. And by the end of the war, Asajj Ventress has done something that very few dark side users do. She walks away. She finds a life in the shadows that's entirely her own. But as the war draws to a close, fate would eventually pull her back in. And this time not for power, not for revenge, but for love. And so we come to section 5, the disciple and the sacrifice. As the Clone Wars reaches its desperate final few months, the Jedi Council does something unthinkable. They send out a hit for Count Dooku, and specifically they sent a Jedi Master, Quinlan Vos. He's very much known for his ability to kind of walk the line between light and dark, and so he felt like the perfect match. And so of course for him to find Dooku, he looks up Asajj Ventress. Again, in the novel Dark Disciple, we see a side to Asajj Ventress that usually gets buried quite a lot. She and Vos form a bounty hunting partnership on the planet Pantora, and initially she's very wary, but Vos manages to peel back her layers. For the first time, Asajj feels like she isn't being used as a weapon, she's being seen as a woman. And while she's always embraced her femininity in a more like spiteful way, she now also embraces it in a different way in her capacity for companionship. And they fall in love. It's a messy, forbidden love that breaks every rule of the Jedi and the Sith. Asajj agrees to help Vos kill Dooku, but she insists that he has to learn the dark side to be able to stand up to him. And so she takes him to the ruins of her village on Dathomir. And this is where her trauma resurfaces, and she actually lies to Vos. She tells him that Dooku killed his former master to fuel his rage. She believes she's hardening him, but the dark side isn't something you can just use. It's all-consuming. And so during their mission to Sereno, everything falls apart. Vos is captured and Asajj is forced to flee and leave him behind. When Asajj later tries to rescue Vos with actually the help of Obi-Wan Kenobi, she realizes that he's completely fallen to the dark side and he is Count Dooku's new apprentice, now going by the name Admiral Enigma. That's a choice for a name. And so the climax occurs on planet Christoph Sis. It's like our story has come full circle once again. In the final battle, Dooku unleashes a lethal blast of force lightning intended to kill Vos. However, Asajj makes a choice and doesn't lash out of hate, but out of love. She throws herself in front of the force lightning, intended to save Vos. And so she dies in his arms. And her final words are, "Always a sister," which is a testament to how far she's come. Obi-Wan and Vos end up taking her body back to Dathomir. They lay her to rest in the village waters where she was born. And in a beautiful supernatural moment, the green mist of the Night Sisters rises to claim her and the water turns clear. She's finally, truly home. And so Asajj Ventress dies a hero, but we can't close the book on her fully yet without acknowledging one simple fact. She was an absolute powerhouse. She was the ultimate combatant. In a galaxy filled with chosen ones and Sith Lords, Asajj really stands on her own. She completely carves out her own legend through grit and skill. She doesn't have the backing of the Jedi, she doesn't have the full secrets of the Sith, yet she goes toe to toe with some of the greatest legends of the era, and usually she wins. She's one of the very few who could take on Annie and Obi at the same time and make them look like they're struggling. She outfights General Grievous on multiple occasions, humiliates tactical geniuses like Luminara, and survives encounters with Count Dooku himself. Her combat style was an absolute nightmare for those who followed the proper rules of engagement. But what makes her truly badass isn't just how she swung a lightsaber, it's the fact that she refuses to stay down. Every time the galaxy tries to push her down, she finds her way back up and claws out. She takes the trauma of being a disposable asset and turns it into a weapon of pure independence. And what I love so much about her is that she embraces every single aspect of herself. She uses her wit, her femininity, and her intimidation as tools of war. She isn't really just like a female version of a Sith. She's a unique, terrifying force of nature who eventually realizes that her greatest strength wasn't her hatred, but actually her autonomy. She was a slave who became a queen, a student turned into general, and an assassin who eventually turns back to being a sister. Asajj really proves that you don't need a title to be a legend. You don't need a Jedi temple, you don't need a Sith citadel, you just need the absolute will to survive the lonely night. I think she's arguably one of the most resilient souls in the Star Wars mythos, and that's why I think she's so cool. This video could have been even longer. I mean, there's so much to discuss about her. It's truly never ending, and I think she's just amazing. Like, just go watch the Clone Wars. And I know there's some people who aren't like the biggest fans of the Clone Wars and it's not all your vibe, but you can't deny how fantastic her story arc is and how nice it was that we got to see more of her than in the initial kind of cartoon Clone Wars. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What do you think? Please tell me in the comments below. I always want to have conversations about these characters. It's like one of my favorite pastimes. Also, I just want to say thank you so much for all your support. I've been kind of playing around with these videos and it's been really nice to start building a little bit of community and just have an excuse to sit here on my chair, talk about Star Wars. I really want to talk about other stuff too. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so who knows what else is coming your way. Until then, I'll see you in the next dimension.